Spotting the tiger. Recognizing early signs of anorexia in children. I'm Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'd like to talk to you about anorexia nervosa in children. Anorexia affects only a few of our children, but the damage it does can be terrible. A key to successful treatment is early identification, and while this is true of most diseases, childhood anorexia poses some special challenges. One of the most powerful symptoms of anorexia can be a complete and impenetrable denial by the child that there's anything wrong. So strong is the child's denial that parents, always wanting to believe their children, fall under anorexia's spell as well. Pediatricians, with contact often limited to a short clinic visit, rely heavily on the child and parent's ability to give an accurate history. Without an accurate history, anorexia deprives the pediatrician of the necessary tools to diagnose the disease. To make matters more difficult, our own values as a society keenly focused on appearance, unwittingly play into the child's distorted perceptions of their health and body. But it's not hopeless. If we can catch anorexia early, we can halt its progress, reverse its symptoms, and bring the child into remission. Recognizing anorexia early is like trying to spot a tiger in the jungle. Trackers will tell you they never see the tiger, only the evidence of where it's been. If you actually see the tiger, you are already in danger. The same is true of anorexia. When anorexia is obvious, serious damage may have already been done. With anorexia, we're looking for the behaviors that lead to food restriction, obsessive exercise, and ultimately starvation. Around the country, there are medical clinics and hospitals that specialize in treating anorexia in children. I'm going to take you to one of these clinics to meet some of the doctors and therapists who work there. We'll also meet a pediatrician from the local community who will share with us her experiences, both successfully and unsuccessfully identifying anorexia. It's through the work of people like these, children and their families can identify anorexia and overcome it. We will meet a young man who had childhood anorexia and who can tell you firsthand what it was like to be controlled by his disease. And we will meet parents who are currently working with a multidisciplinary team to help their child recover from anorexia. Here are 3 typical stories about the progression of anorexia in children.
10-year-old Karina's mother considered going on a diet. Karina encouraged her and, in an attempt to be supportive, joined her, reducing her own calorie intake as well. Before long, Karina eliminated whole categories of food from her diet. She obsessively weighed herself and exercised for hours on end. At 600 calories per day and refusing to drink water, she confided, "My mind gets angry when I gain weight." Nicholas wanted to be an athlete just like his father, but knee pain and injuries cut short his attempts. His drive to be an athlete was replaced by an obsession with his weight. Nicholas's pediatrician dismissed his parents' fear over their son's 20-pound weight loss, warning only that if he lost another 20 pounds should they be concerned. When an extended family vacation interrupted Nicholas's exercise routine, he resolved to lose weight by, in his words, eating more healthfully. Upon the family's return, Nicholas had lost another 15 pounds. At 16 years old and 6'1", Nicholas weighed 132 pounds. Lucy was always considered a big-boned girl. At age 14, she was 5'8" and weighed 180 pounds. She began to diet to lose weight. When she reached 140 pounds, she felt like she finally looked right. But she didn't feel right. After a sudden fainting episode, she was admitted to hospital with a resting pulse of 42.
All 3 of these children have anorexia. So what is anorexia? As far as I'm concerned, anorexia nervosa is a brain disorder. In the 19th century and in the 20th century, it was regarded as a failure of parenting, something that someone indulged in for psychological reasons or social reasons, or a combination of the two. But our work with children has really taken us further and further away from what we regard as out-of-date 19th century, early 20th century hypotheses, more towards an understanding of how the brain itself works and how it functions and how it can malfunction.
What does early anorexia look like? In the beginning stages of anorexia, you may see personality and behavior changes, followed soon by weight loss.
It's basically characterized by a desire to decrease your body weight, a fear of fatness, although that can be absent in very young children and in some boys, by a relentless pursuit of thinness, usually through dieting, but also through exercise, and sometimes through the ingestion of materials that make the person feel as if they were becoming lighter, such as laxatives. What anorexia looks like depends on if you're the mother or father or you're the pediatrician. The most common way for a child with anorexia nervosa to present to the pediatrician is actually syncope or fainting. To a parent, anorexia nervosa presents somewhat differently. I would say most commonly it starts with an apparent disinterest in eating food. Although they are secretly very fascinated by food, in fact, they may begin shopping, cooking, clipping food coupons, watching television shows that are related to cooking. They rarely eat what they cook.
First of all, they become secretive, maybe withdrawn, where someone's been very social, very active in their family. All of a sudden, they're reclusive, more time in their room, isolated, agitated. A lot of families talk about how pleasant their child is, and then all of a sudden how irritated they seem to be. Kids would say, "I'm annoyed with my parents." So squabbles about things that really aren't important or don't seem to be. Everyone kind of on edge all the time.
So this is not in her character. This is not, she wasn't acting the way that she used to be. People will say when their child gets into remission, parents will often say, I feel like I have my child back. So it really changes their personality in a way.
Presentation in boys is a little bit different. The boys really focus on being buff. They talk a lot about the six-pack stomach. I want that cut look. A lot of men's magazines have that guy on the cover, and I think it's always like the same 2 or 3 guys that just kind of recycle themselves. And the girls will focus on being thin because thin's attractive. The boys focus on thin because it's fit.
It starts to dawn on you that a child that you've known for a year and a half is wasting away very slowly, and you start trying to bring up the subject, and you realize that you see looks pass between the daughter and the mother. You see that there's been some tension between them about eating, and when the subject comes up, it's often a sore subject between the parents and their children already.
You have absolutely no idea what's going on. I mean, when somebody tells you that, you don't believe it. You don't want to believe it. I mean, even when you think about it hard, you can't even understand why they're saying that. It's really to a point of extreme set of denial. I don't know how to really explain it, but it's like you're sick, yet you don't feel like it at all.
Most kids pretty early on know. They do know. They don't want to know, or they go into this great state of denial. But when you explore it with the kids, most of them say, yeah, I knew pretty quickly I had a problem. I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. I'm certainly not going to admit it to my parents.
I find that if they've lost a lot of weight over the course of a year, I can sit down and talk to them about eating more for energy, but I've got to say that, a week goes by and I'm talking with the parents by phone, in follow-up just to see how it's going, and now they're fighting every night at the dinner table, and now he doesn't want to eat with the family anymore because he says that he's under a microscope for what he eats.
How does a child with anorexia act around food? Anorexia strips the child of their ability to self-regulate the types and amount of food they'll eat. The child is driven to drastically reduce calories far below what is necessary to sustain life. This is the basic action of anorexia. It's often hard to distinguish good and healthy exercise from obsessive-compulsive exercise meant only to burn calories. While adults exercise for health and strength, children need to play and have fun. While there may be goal setting, competition, and high achievement in compulsive or compensatory exercise, there's rarely much fun.
In a lot of the cases, exercise will show up. Compensatory exercise, meaning if the child eats a normal dinner, they may feel the need to exercise for a certain amount of time to burn that off, get rid of that food.
A lot of the families are for it initially. Wow, this is a great thing, it's a healthy thing. She used to just sit around the couch and watch TV, and now she's out running 5 miles a day, and isn't that wonderful? What they're not aware of is what happens outside of the 5 miles a day. Exercise in the room, you run 5 miles a day, and then you come home and do an hour on the treadmill. And then our society sees that as a very positive thing. We're active, and we should be. There's a line that kids cross, and it's not always seen very well.
You know, a child can be very sick with an eating disorder and performing at a remarkably high level in their sport. And that's when it's hard, because you as a physician can see it because of vital signs and other things. But from the outside, the child looks like they're performing as well as ever. That 14-year-old boy, he was the top scorer on his basketball team, and he was fainting every day.
You can be a marathon runner and still be healthy, no matter what the look is. What people don't understand is marathon runners take in a lot of calories. You burn a lot of calories, you replace a lot of calories. There's a balance there. The kids with anorexia, that balance is gone. You burn a lot of calories and you don't balance it with the proper intake of calories.
If anorexia is left untreated, what can happen? Our goal is to catch anorexia long before the child suffers any physical damage. But when we don't, unchecked anorexia will strip the child of their health and mental well-being. Sadly, some of the damage can be permanent.
Although anorexia nervosa is a brain disorder, the effects of the disorder are not limited to the brain. It has a profound effect on growth and development, especially in young children. And even in children in their late teens, it will have a profound effect on bone deposition, growth, and development. So that prolonged episodes of starvation that then lead to decrease in estrogen in young girls causes a decrease in bone mass that we call osteopenia, or weakness of the bones. And in some kids, it even extends as far as osteoporosis, which is a brittle condition of the bone. In addition to that, starvation itself has a profound effect on the heart. It decreases the muscle mass of the heart and causes the heart to beat more slowly. A person who's very starved loses their ability to think clearly and cannot really be responsible for good decision making.
I don't think it would have made a difference if they told me anything. I was in so much denial. I can't even fully imagine probably how much denial I was in. I physically knew what was happening, but I didn't mentally know what was happening. It was like something was disjointed between mind and body.
Cognitive impairment is subtle but definite. Very commonly people think that anorexia doesn't impact the brain much because the kids are still getting straight A's in school. Those straight A's, however, are based more on obsessionality and obsessive and compulsive schoolwork than they are on actual intellectual achievement. And in fact, as the kids get older and school gets harder, in the later years of high school and the early years of college, almost all of them will gradually find that their intellectual capacity grinds to a halt.
Why is it so easy to miss anorexia in its early stages? Who expects the unexpected? In some ways, our culture makes the early stages of anorexia more difficult to see.
So it's important, with that cultural bias of what eating disorders look like, to pay attention to how kids lose weight. The manner in which they do it, how unhealthy have they gone about it, that can be eating disorders. High body weight to normal body weight, how did they get there? It's important to ask those questions, and rather than just say, well, you look great, you're at a weight you are, perhaps that's not where they should be.
What happens is when a person has an eating disorder, it gives them a sense of mastery. It gives them a sense of self-efficacy. It gives them, they feel they have more confidence. They feel better about themselves. So it's very, very, very empowering. And even if there's a little bit of them that thinks, oh, this isn't quite right, this isn't quite normal, they're going to push that away because the gain that they get from it is so much greater than the perceived detriment that they're going to hang on to it. They're going to hang on to it as hard as they can.
I guess it snuck up on me because he had been playing basketball with his friends. He was the top scorer on his basketball team. And you know, he's a fun kid. He was laughing. He seemed to be pretty energetic. He hadn't been feeling well, and he really, I guess there was a prejudice inside me. He didn't look like a kid with anorexia, and so I asked some questions trying to get a sense of whether he was dieting, but I guess I didn't ask the right kinds of questions.
Yeah, before I was admitted to the hospital, and I knew this, and before what was happening to me, I had a run-in with many, many doctors, one right after another, because my parents thought something was wrong. They knew something was wrong, but every doctor sort of ruled it out as a common cold. You're bouncing back. It's a regular cycle for teenagers. It was just excuse after excuse after excuse, and it was about the fifth doctor or the fourth doctor, I forget, before something was actually realized that something's wrong here, so we're going to take you into the hospital.
There's an old adage, and I don't know where it comes from, but you kind of see what you're looking for. And I think about years ago there was those pictures where there was a image up front and then you kind of unfocus your eyes and you see another image behind it. I don't think people do that enough. There seems to be, okay, there's some depression, some anxiety, and we recognize that and we see that, but we don't see or we don't look for the different layers. And if you're not looking for a deeper layer, you're not going to see it.
Childhood anorexia is not an easy topic to discuss. It is a frightening, horrific, and poorly understood disease. It is almost impossible to believe that a child could actually starve themselves and that a parent or physician might not notice. The guilt that families feel is extraordinary. It is important to remember that parents don't cause anorexia and children do not choose to have it. It is a brain disorder and it is nobody's fault. And remember, you do not need to treat it. Just recognize the possibility of it and look for help from the specialists like the ones you've met in this presentation.